What's up, guys? It's your girl Ren, and today we're doing part 2 about anxiety. Melodies out of the way, please subscribe and like if you want to keep watching more videos, and you are the notification squad, so you just hit me up and you'll just make sure you get everything on time. Also remember, I am not a licensed psychologist, so if you're having intense issues with your depression, please do seek help. Please do reach out for someone. All the information will be down in the description below. So without further ado, let's get started. For starters, I want to apologize for my current state because I was doing yoga and I have currently remembered that I actually have to do this video. My bad. Anyway, today we're gonna make it a little bit lighter. Sorry, my hair has a life of its own. We're gonna make it a little lighter today, discuss how to spot anxiety because it is one of those symptoms that comes along with depression. And also to remind you guys that just because someone says that they have anxiety does not mean that they don't have it if they sound very calm when they tell you. Sometimes you need the mask because you don't know how a person is going to react. This was that there's a certain sense of dread before having to perform certain physical activities or even mental activities. If you're in school, you will know that you feel anxious just about getting up in the morning and actually going and having to do something because the thought of it makes you literally want to die. This feeling of rejection, if people tend to mistake your anxiety for being nervous about an activity like public speaking, but it's safest to actually ask, do you feel nervous or do you feel anxious, and why do you feel anxious, and does this anxious feeling come from the actual act or the thought of how it's going to go? Because most of the time a person feels anxiety merely because they overthink. We as depressed people have a tendency to think things are going to always go bad as opposed to thinking of it as a glass half full type of situation. So just be open. Communication is always key in any kind of relationship, and that includes the one that you can see someone who might have with depression. It's not a healthy relationship, but it is one nonetheless, and it is safest to simply treat it for what it is as opposed to pretending it's simply the jitters or cold feet or just having a bad day. Think about anxiety as kind of a speed. So think about when this person's heart rate begins to increase, an increase in nervousness, an increase in dread, an increase in normal habits and jitters that would normally be kind of like at a down low have suddenly spiked, a twitchy eye, any kind of twitch, something that would normally not happen, or even if they do have a history of stuttering or having a twitch, it's suddenly become more increased. Take note of those things, be observant, be diligent with this person, ask them what is wrong. We keep circling back to the just ask thing because I feel like nowadays in one society people are either too sensitive or too tough. There's never an equal balance in the middle where you can actually be strong for asking someone how they're feeling, and you can equally be strong for telling someone that you're not feeling good. So just think about that and remember that those things can constitute anxieties, but it doesn't limit, it doesn't stop there. So some people react to anxieties differently. I know that for me, when I have anxiety, I look exceptionally calm and I become very secluded because I'm afraid. My heart rate is going so fast. I think I need to sleep. I'll make a cup of tea, but I don't drink tea. You see, so those certain things that come to mind is just things that you need to watch out for. And it's important to allow yourself to understand that it's okay if you missed them in the beginning. You're learning, and so are we. So before we do the last point, which is changes in appetite, I wanted to do irritability, and this is a really fine line that I'm about to cross here because I want to address it with regards to men and how, because we as women, when we become more irritable, we tend to just shout and get over it, but that's just again walking a very fine line. But with men, notice that you're becoming more angry. If you feel this need to kind of project, or maybe you don't even notice that you're projecting your anger, you're upset, you don't understand, you feel frustrated because nothing is going your way, and you know how you as a man might feel it is your responsibility to provide, and you might not be able to provide because right now your depression is not allowing you to work or to function properly as you normally would function, and that's okay too. So I want you to not feel like you're being attacked by this comment, but more of a it's okay. And especially if you have a spouse, you can allow your spouse to take a little bit of your burden. You know, you can either both work, it's going to be fine, you're going to get through this, but allow yourself to see when you've maybe crossed the line with yourself, so that you don't project onto those that you love, because even they have feelings and you don't want them to feel depressed because they cannot help you with your own struggle with depression. And that's all I'm going to say on the matter. We're going to move on to the last point now. Location, because I thought this was a good idea and it actually isn't. It was so windy. I had like a mini tornado. It was out of this world and it freaked me the hell out. But right now it's like stable, so we're gonna do this point quickly, like really quickly. Okay, so in appetite and weight, or both. Okay, so I know that with me, when I first got depressed, I picked up a lot of weight. I binge ate all the time. If I wasn't chewing something at some point during the day, I was not living. I was merely existing. I needed to eat. Even if it was just gum, I needed to have something in my mouth at all moments. It had to be ice cream, potato chips, anything and everything was an option. And looking back at it now, I didn't realize how fast it happened, because I put on double my weight. I remember being very thin, very petite. I had a small frame, you know, for my age. I was just very tall for my age, and the only issue with that was that it was easier to put on the weight, because the taller you are, the less people kind of notice. You know, if you're shorter, you can't really put on as much weight as, you know, you'd like to. But when you're taller, you can get away with a little bit more. Not to fat shame. This is not a fat shaming video. Point is, I put on a lot of weight, and I know that of a lot of my friends who have depression, they lost a lot of weight. And I know that a lot of people suffer from eating disorders, which can go in either direction. I had an eating disorder, but we're not going to touch on that today. I just want you to know, if you're suffering with that, if you're struggling with that, I'm going to leave some sites in the description that will help you, that you can, you know, go and look through. Or if you don't want to do that, again, hit me up in the comments, send me a message, we can talk. I don't do much, so I would love to listen and hear out your stories about what you think. So one thing to look for is your friend or loved one, or the person you suspect might be depressed, are they eating more? Are they eating less? Are they eating at all? Do you think that they're drinking too much liquids? Also, drastic changes, like this hectic person who never ate vegetables suddenly wants to go on a juice diet. Why? You know, without a legitimate reasons, without consulting a doctor, without consulting a specialist or dietitian, without actually understanding what they're doing. Those are big red flags. Red flags you should probably check and just ask. Again, we keep coming back, just ask. And if you feel like they might not be comfortable in telling you they're just not ready, that's okay too. Your job is to just be there. Once again, if you see someone with depression, your job is to exist and help, not to enable, judge, and reject. You know, and it's really easy to do that when one is concerned, because you don't know what steps to take. There is no manual for how to deal with this. All we can do is share our experiences, tell you how we dealt with them, and hopefully you can get through this problem too, and you can see that there is definitely a light at the end of the tunnel. All right, so there's one more thing I wanted to actually mention. It's not a point that I wanted to put down here, but it is about thinking about death. If you want to take that as the last point, you can, but I've noticed that depression does instigate feelings of being suicidal. That can also happen when someone starts going on antidepressants and the medication. There are certain side effects that people react differently to. If someone is showing symptoms by simply talking about death, or making a mental note of it, or being more spiritual, if you notice that this person is starting to get a little too death crazy, starting to think about coffins, cemeteries, you know, those very dark thoughts, now is a red flag. It's okay. You need to ask them. You need to kind of approach it very delicately. You don't know at what stage they're at. There are helplines, numbers, there are various ways that you can actually help this person, which I will put in the description below. But just remember, a person who is depressed doesn't necessarily mean that this person is suicidal, but a suicidal person will most likely be depressed because something must be going wrong in their lives. So essentially, just take it easy, allow yourself to be human. If you miss these signs, it's okay. You don't have to blame yourself. Do not give yourself survivor's guilt. Do not allow that negativity in your life. You are the beacon of hope for this person, and this person will one day be the beacon of hope for someone else who suffers from depression once they get through this. So from here, I think I'm done. Have a beautiful weekend, and remember, there is a rainbow at the end after the rain.